Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa akibatun lil mustaqim wa la uhwana ila ala dalimin. Muhammadan wa huwa Sayyidina Mahbubina kana Sayyid Mursalin salawatu Allah Ta'ala wa salamuhu alayhi. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh lil ikhwani wati fi din. Assalamu ala mani tabahuda lil ikhwani wati fi Africa, Europa, Caribbean, America, wa kulli makan. Ahlan wa salim bikum. Well, my dear brothers and sisters, today I am going to talk about a kind of sensitive topic, but one is needed to be talked about, and one that is not talked about much, except there's a lot of articles written about this type of issue. And in the event of some of the recent events that's happened in Nigeria and elsewhere, I'd be remiss not to talk about this. Because again, I'm a Fulani living on the outside of the fray. And we as Futafula people know better than most the qualities of leadership, and our leadership that's been present in the Sahel and in the coastal West Africa for years, since the 700s to the late 1800s. We had our share, and we always were looked to in leadership. And today, we're not leading anything. We have memberships, which I'll cover in another segment, and I covered a little bit last week about the title, Niyate Allah, which is a powerful, powerful message of Tawheed for the Muslim, meaning that Muslim would give his thanks to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, not just only for good things, but bad things as well. So when we take a title like this, it encompasses many things. We're not seeing that many things today among the leadership, or the so-called leadership, among the Fulani people today. So I'm going to take you back, okay, a little bit, and talk about some of the things that has happened in the past and our leadership and why we were so powerful in the past. First, I want to give you something from the famed Summary Toure, the famed Mandinka warrior, imam, scholar deluxe, who had the Wassalu Sultanate. And he was very, very instrumental in helping develop many different things. And he had a close relationship with the Futafula community and with its leadership. And in a famed letter that he had written in the Arabic language, there was a war taking place where you had a group of animists, which I believe they were Juju, were in the midst of sowing seeds of deceit between the Muslims. Have we seen that before? Regardless of what religion they are, they don't believe in Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and Tawheed. I don't care if they're African or Toubab, it doesn't make a difference. They're enemies of Allah, it doesn't make a difference in color. They were sowing the seeds between the Mandinka groups and the Fulani groups. So much so that a fight was about to happen, a battle was about to happen between the Futafula and the Mandinka over the treachery of this one group. And to quell this, Summary Turi sent a letter to the emir of the Fulani, who they're about ready to engage in battle based upon the information that was given by the Juju and this small little kingdom that they had. But it was powerful enough to where it was courting the Muslims, but at the same time they were sowing seeds. And this is in present day area we know as Cote d'Ivoire, okay, and eastern western part of Ghana and some parts of Guinea. We know that. So he sent the letter and he said of his love and respect for the Fula people, he said. And he said that the Muslims don't fight other Muslims. And he said, I know the Fulani to be strong Muslims. This is in the 1800s. He also knew that their leadership, he said, your leadership have been leading us here in West Africa for centuries. This is what he said, and it quelled the fight that was about to happen. And then Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the answer that they were both being set up by disbelievers who I won't even have to mention the name of this little small little kingdom, and they went to take care of it, which they did. I'm making a point. He has some things to say about leadership, and when he talked to his Fulani brothers about leadership in the Sahel and West Africa, and he was very poignant about this. And I believe our leaders today in these organizations that we talk about today should remember these things. I have been saying this for weeks to build you up to this point. Our leadership today is not what it should be. I may read off some parts of a dreadful letter that happened in 2018, which I feel is still pertinent today, about our lack of leadership. And why has it come to the point that now the Fula people are not recognized for any leadership? We've allowed others who don't like us to say what we are. And they say that we're criminals and everything else. Because we should be leading. And let's go back to the genesis of this. When the Afro-Arabs who came across the Sahara, they were black. We know that. You heard me talk about this many times. They weren't white Toubabs from Lebanon and Syria and all that. That's not the case. They were black. Who did they first give Islam to? It was through the Futafula community who spread it. So much so that it caused conflicts, because when the Futafula were Muslims, everybody else were animists, Juju, Ifa, Voodoo, Obia, and other types of traditional African religions, and caused conflict. But the matter is that they had leadership, and that leadership rose to Islamic empires because of Futafula leadership. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Futafula Islam. We spread Islam to the point to where even the Tuareg, even the Amazigh, even the Afro-Arabs look to this region, for what? Leadership, and for what? Warriors. So much so that we not only stayed in West Africa, we went North Africa, and we went into Spain. As you heard my classes talking about this. Now, my dear brothers and sisters who are not Fulani, please don't misunderstand me here. I'm not talking that everybody's inferior. I'm not saying that the Futafula are superior to anybody. No, a Muslim is the good ones among us, and the strongest ones among us is the taqwa and what's in his heart and what he exhibits, not race and what ethnic group. No, no, no. I'm talking about a historical fact, and I'm giving to you. Anybody can research this and find this out. And you see my classes. I've given you enough. Now you can do your research. I'm talking because we have a crisis within the Futafula. And if we don't solve it, then how are we going to sit back on our rear ends and ask for the Hausa, we ask for the Igbo, we ask for the Yoruba, we ask for the Tif, we ask for the Dogon, we ask for everyone else, the Mende and everybody to solve our problems when we should be solving the problems because Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave us Islam first. He gave us all this scholarship. What happened to it? We know the colonial period. What happened to it? What happened to all our leadership? They're there sitting in the wings. Yes, many have been arrested. Many can't talk. Many have been derailed. Many have left. We understand that. And let me get here to some of our questions. Or some of our, okay, how you doing, my dear brother Jello? Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up. I think this is an important talk because we should talk about the Futafula, and we should talk about it in the sense of giving it what it should be, is praising it, but also slapping the backsides of our leadership because it needs to be slapped. Thank you very much, my dear brother, and your Fulani Mandinka. Hey, brother, that's right. I'm glad to hear you say this. You got your ethnic groups down, and you're proud. This is what I want to see. Anybody who comes in, I prefer, except people like Jello. He knows what he is. But many of us, we do not. We start to discover now who we are, right? So if you come on, I would greatly appreciate that. Especially if you coming from from the Americas or the Caribbean, and you come on the show, I like you to say, "Hey, I'm Yahya, I'm Fulani. Yahya, I'm Hausa. I don't want to see I'm American. I don't want to see I'm African American. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see it. You come in, you introduce yourself. I'm Futafula. I'm I'm Hausa. I'm Wolof, or I'm Mendika. I'm Mende, or I'm Capelli. That's great. I want to see that. Why? Because as African people, we're the only ones that seem to have no pride in what we are. Seems like this is what the issue is. We have no pride. We seem to want to jump everywhere else, but we don't want to say they're Fula. They don't want to say they're Mandinka. They don't want to say they're Hausa. That's not right. So when I see the brothers admit who they are and they're proud of it, that warms my heart. So Jazakallah khairan to my dear brother here for mentioning this, and others who mentioned it also, like my brother Marcus, who come on, he tells you, hey, I'm Hausa, and I like that. It's beautiful. I'm glad to see that. What about the Mandinka? Mandinka, yes, Mandinka had their empires. I'm talking about one of the greatest of the Mandinka, which is Samari Toure, one of the greatest statesmen, one of the greatest warriors and jihad, and a scholar on top of that. I'm talking about him now because he played an important role in the 1800s when he pushed the Futafula community and the leadership, and he gave them advice, which was good. And I'll get into that. He was dismayed because he was asking why would the Fulani Muslims come to fight him? He's Mandinka, and he's Muslim as well. He wanted to know how the Futafula was guided by the Juju. How did they persuade them to fight against the Mandinka, against his sultanate? See, and this war that didn't happen, but what they did is once they figured it out where the treachery came from, both Samari Toure and the emir of the Futafula got together and they went after the Juju who caused this problem, and they went and defeated them. But after that, he sat down to talk about leadership. And Samari Toure was one of the greatest of our leaders, irrespective if he was Mandinka. Because he fought the French with bare muskets and bows and arrows for 20 years until he was betrayed. And if they weren't betrayed, no telling what would happen, because the French could not defeat him. But he was betrayed by other Africans. We know how that is. He went on to talk about this. He says, if you cannot if you cannot organize, lead, and defend the country of your fathers, call upon the most valiant men. He was talking about the Mandinka. He was talking about the Futafula. He was talking about the Bende, all of brothers who were Muslims. But in this particular situation, he was making reference to the Fulani people because the leadership seemed to forgot this. And he was saying to you, if you cannot organize and lead and defend your country of your fathers, call upon the most valiant men. Look at today. Huh? Our leaders are very slow. Yes, we understand there's the grip of the Toubab hanging over West Africa and Africa in particular. And the Toubab was smart. He put in hypocrites and weak Muslims and marginal Muslims and out and out disbelievers as a buffer, as a proxy to keep him in power. When he barked out the orders, we have leaders that do what they tell them to do. See, and we see this. Summary Turi was talking to leadership as same situation we have now, same situation to a degree. He was dismayed. So he went to the leadership of the Fulani and he said, if you cannot organize and lead and defend the country of your fathers, call on others, most valiant men, to call again. And that time in the 1800s, we're not talking about today. We're talking about Summary Turi in the mid 1800s, what he was talking about at this time. If you, as the Fulani leader, if you head of the Mayati Allah, you're head of another organization, the Fulani, you should be leading. You should, and you cannot lead, you step aside and you let the most valiant men come forward to lead. This is what Summary Turi was saying to the Fulani people. Because we're Muslim brothers. If you cannot, he's again talking leadership. This goes for our leadership today. And I wish they would see this to see what I'm talking about. Because I'm an outsider. I'm Fulani, but I don't live in Nigeria or in Niger. I don't live there. But I'm a Fulani historian, and I go through and sift through documents and history, and I memorize, and I memorize, and I memorize. So then I could talk about issues like this. Summary Turi went on to say, if you cannot say the truth at all times, in all places, call on the most courageous men, meaning our scholars, if you have a leader who cannot talk the truth, and if he cannot give the bayana, okay, the proof and stuff, then you call on what? The courageous people. At that time, the ulama and the fuqaha were very, very, strong Muslims and devout Muslims, and they knew the Quran and the Sunnah. He was talking about this issue. You are a leader. If you cannot say the truth, you cannot at all times, all places, then step aside. You go to the ulama and fuqaha and go to them and get guidance. We don't have that today. How many of our leaders do this among the Fulani people? They ignore our scholars, right? They are famous imams, so they ignore them and they run straight over to Europe or in America to get guidance, or they run to Russia or China. This is what we see today. So our leadership today should take heed of this, because this is an African who wrote this. This is one of our greatest and most powerful of all of the jihad. I'm talking about a man, Mujahid, Deluxe, Summary Turi, Mandinka. And he had a small sultanate called Wasalu. You do the research on him. But he was very close to the Fulani people, very close. That's why he was hurt when he found that the Fulani people were guided by the disbelievers to go against him. We see that today, don't we? We have Muslims so quick, based upon the word of the Toubab, to go kill another Muslim based upon the information given by a Toubab. See, so, and it happened, Summary Turi went in secret to the leadership and talked to them, which was good, and it averted a war between the Muslims while the Juju was in the background in his little kingdom, sitting back watching and orchestrating a conflict between the Muslims. See? Here's the other thing, another message to our leaders. He says, if you cannot be impartial, give the throne to righteous men. Here we go again. Many of our leaders are not impartial. Many of our leaders are not righteous. Now, I'm not talking about every man, every woman on this earth, especially in this day and age, makes mistakes. We say things wrong, we get angry, we cry, we say things that are bad, we do things as human. What he's talking about here is righteousness, meaning righteousness under the Quran and the Sunnah, not under democratic ways and means. That's not what Subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered. So anyone who says that the righteous man coming out from the law of the Toubab is a traitor. He's a treacherous African who says that the ways of the disbeliever, when Subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Nisa 141, when he says, no, I will not allow the disbelievers and their way to triumph over the believers. So why would you use the ways of the Toubab to go against the Fulani? Why would you use that against the Hausa and against the Kanuri people? Why? See, these are not true Muslims who do this. And here he's talking about you can't be impartial. Give the throne to the righteous man. Those leaders among our Fulani people today and these organizations who are not righteous, who are not strong, turn it over to our righteous men. We have righteous Fulani people today. And they are strong Muslims and devout Muslims in the cause of Allah and the cause of protecting the Futafula community. But they can't come and rise to the top because there's blockages from the Toubab and the hypocrites. This is why Samari Toure, what he said today, I mean, in the messages in the mid 1800s, is pertinent for us today, almost 200 years ago. We got some more comments here. We got our brother here. What about the Mandinka? Yes, alhamdulillah. Okay. Al, how you doing? Rip the great, Damori. Okay, brother, I don't know what you said. Rip the great. I don't understand. Oh, okay, here we go. Samori the Great. Yes, okay, now you made it clear. Yes, my dear brother, Samori Toure was one hell of an African. I mean, one hell of an African. You think about this. As the rise of the colonial powers, the French, now with all their weaponry and everything else, they could not defeat by themselves a band of Muslims led by the Mandinka greatest warrior, Samori Toure. And he fought them with mere muskets and bows and arrows and lances for 20 years. He outsmarted them, he tricked them, he ambushed them, he did many things. And he was finally betrayed in the last by other Africans for a few trinkets. So he was great, yes, no doubt about it. That's why I'm talking about him now, because his message to the Fulani, we have to. That's why I'm talking about it now. And our leaders, if they happen to see this or happen to get a hold of this and they look at this, then they examine exactly what was said. And you heard me for weeks, brothers and sisters, say the same thing again. In order for us to prosper and go in the future, we cannot neglect the past, meaning we've had other leadership. We have all the way from the Prophet to the Sahaba, the companions, the three favorite generations. We have all this scholarship. Okay, if you don't want to study about the about Arabs or some of our greatest Arab Muslims, okay, warriors and so forth, you don't want that. Then you don't have to look over there. You can look right in the African continent. You can look at Takrur region. I mean, starting around the 700s and so forth, going all the way up, and finally they became weak and all that. We've had all of that, brothers and sisters. See, we have all of that. And I believe our leaders are remiss because they do not go back to the past and look to see how things have been handled. They don't want to do that. As though they're better. They're not better than our predecessors. You show me the modern Muslim today. I don't care if he's Mandinka. I don't care if he is Mende or if he's Fulani. Who is better than Omar Dab among us today? Who is better than Samari Toure? Who was better than Idris Oloma? Somebody, you know, somebody show me who's greater than these strong African brothers, our ancestors, who ruled by the Sharia law, not by the Toubab, with the Toubab coming to order them around. No. And you won't find that. See, that's the thing. You're not going to find that. If you cannot protect the iron to face the enemy, give your sword of war to women who will point you to the path of honor. Now, listen to what Samari Toure made a point to leaders, period. But he was talking to the Fulani leadership was weakened because they forgot about they were the first Muslims and they were strong Muslims. And they forgot, and their leaders forgot about what it is to be, you know, a Fulani, who were part of the Futafula community. They forgot, and they didn't know how to lead anymore. We see that today. He tried to bring them back because he loved his brothers. And he's talking to them. He said, if you cannot protect the iron to face the enemy, we see that today. Give your sword of war to women who will point you to the path of honor. Why he say that? Because at this time we had strong Fulani sisters as well. And we don't talk much about that. And we had some who were also warriors in their own right. And they were wise counsel. See? And when we look at, all we have to do in more modern times, within the last 200 years, Usman and Fodio, look at his daughters. They became scholars, right? Huh? We had that among the Futafula people. He's telling you, brother, if you cannot face the enemy, okay, you go to the sisters and ask them for guidance, and they'll point you to the path of glory. He was right on in this. And this also goes to our Futafula sisters now to say, look, your men are weak and they're falling. You need to pick them up with your leadership and your wisdom, because it's you as the first teacher of that child. It's not me. It's not any other man. The first teacher of the child is the woman. That's right. So our sisters have to step up to a degree, because our men are weak today. They have to come in to this imam, to this man of the Fuqaha, to a Qadi who's Fulani, and go to him and say, you're my husband, I love you, but you are not following the Quran and the Sunnah. You should be doing this. This is the way Hamidi, this is how he ruled. This is the way Sawadi, this is how he ruled. This is the way Omar Dow, this is what he did. Our sisters should step up too and start putting a foot up the rear ends, art rear ends, to get us back to leading again. And he made a good point. If you cannot courageously express your thoughts, give the floor to the griots talk. See, in a way, he's talking again because under his empire and the Muslims, we have to say this and we have to be real on this. You know, under Islam, there's no compulsion. When you have a sultanate, many people can live. Even the Juju lived under that. They had no problem as long as they obeyed the laws. You can practice Juju. If you were a fire worshiper, you can practice that. If you were Jew or Christian, you can practice your faith under the empire of the Muslims. And Samari Toure had no difference. He had the same thing. And our Futafula, Musina in particular, I'm talking about, you heard me talk about them many times. I'll get a little bit into that. They have this as well. And they had a special council of griots and marabouts as well, because that's their communities. They're not saying, no, we're gonna follow them. No, but they're part of their community. It was wise because they can come talk directly to the ruler. And they say, look, our people are having problems here. Even though they're Juju, we have problems over here. We have problems over here. They won't sell to us and they won't buy. Because they were living under the protection of the Sultanate. And this is a thing about history and in the Sharia. I talked about this issue before, but he was talking about this and he was giving us sound advice. Ofama, remember now, this is a word that we also know in the Messina dialect We also know because my great-great-grandmother had this first name like this, Fama. See, we know this in the we know this in the Amazigh language as Fatma. We know this. See, so the people trust you, meaning you are the leader. It's trust you because you embody its virtues. Our Futafula leaders today, how many can we say we trust? Brothers and sisters, ask that. How many do we say we trust? See, this is a problem, isn't it? And our brother, our ancestral brother, Samari Toure, gave us good direction and advice. This is what we should be looking at in our leaders today. Our brothers sitting in Nigeria, our brothers sitting in Togo or Ghana or any other place, and we have organizations and we have leadership there, and they are vocal in their leadership. I've given you a guide here that Samari Toure, our ancestral brother, gave us to make a diagnosis on our leadership. So you go over this again. Those points he made. There's 6 points that he's made for leadership, and it's simple. You measure that with the leadership today. Is our leadership honest? Are they righteous in their virtues and what they do? You have to ask that question. So I'm going to take you to some other virtues, what we should be as a Fulbe leader, as you as a person who's Fulani and you were leading an organization or anything. We have to go back to where our ancestral brothers were ruling and judging and governing. Not this modern stuff where we're mixing the ways of the Toubab with the ways of Islam, the ways with Pulaco. We have all kind of stuff mixed in together and nobody knows what's going on. A Fulbe leader puts Allah's name first before all things. How many are leaders? How many have you heard them when they talk even mention Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name? Huh? How many? And how many promote that his name will reign supreme in the areas where they're at? Not many. In his governance and handling disputes between us and others? Not many. And dealing with the disbelievers? Not many. When a leader, a Fulani leader, doesn't mention the name of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in his speech to the people, then you know he's suspect, because that means Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is not first in his heart and in his judgments, because Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says the best of judges is those who what? Go to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and use the example of the Prophet ﷺ and all the guided men that came after. And we have many hundreds and thousands of examples to use. We lost this leadership. We lost it. And today we have disputes. And I'll get more into that. The Fulbe leader looks to the Quran and the Sunnah and our ancestral rulers in mapping out strategies for the Futafula and other Muslims under his reign. Brothers and sisters, I'll give you something that's deep in my heart, what I firmly believe. Something that I saw that perhaps may transpire be ifnillah with Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's permission. I saw the Fulani leadership stepping up. So much so that they became so powerful that they began to lead again. See, and I foresee that. I believe that. Because there was a reason Subhanahu wa Ta'ala made us the first Muslims. And on top of that, brothers and sisters, we have to look at it. Our greatest scholars were Fulani. You heard me say this. Our greatest leaders were Fulani. Our greatest sultanates were Fulani. We have to look at it. The famed Timbuktu, who were the greatest of the professors and the imams and the scholars? They're Fulani. The five greatest scholars of Timbuktu's history, three of them are Fulani. See, so there's a reason why Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this. We lost it. We lost this. We lost his favor. We lost it. When we had it from the 700s, he gave us a jihad and said, look, I love you for what you are doing. He took us from the Sahara when we took Islam, and he led us to spread all through West Africa. We ended up into Takrur, okay? You know that region there, Senegal. You already talked about that. By the time we were still relatively new, but he strengthened us and said, I'm going to give you a jihad and put you in history. And from the Takrur region, the Fulani people, who we call Hapapular and so forth, in that region, went all the way in their jihad with their Amazigh brothers, okay, we know, okay, and went up into Andalus. Not only one time, they did it 2 times to save Andalus, okay, twice. Subhanahu wa ta'ala was so generous with us because our leadership was strong and they were honest. Our leaders honest and they ruled by the Sharia Allah. A fully leader looks to the Quran and Sunnah. You look through our history and look at all these leaders. They didn't use democratic ways and means. They didn't use the ways of the juju or the obia or anything else. They used the Sharia Allah. The Fula leader knows and asks Allah for his guidance. It is critical that he is just in balancing our unique history and the way of life. We have to balance because we live in modern times. Today we have cars, we have internet, we have telephones, okay, you know what I mean? We have pagers, we have cell phones, we have all of this stuff. So now we have to be more modern in our approach. But the leader understands that. See, and he also, even though we have many of our learned Futafula who are calling for the disbandment of our herdsmen, because they look at that as an inferior way of life. But I'll talk about a little bit of that in a bit here. But he strengthens the herdsmen because this is our heritage. You can't strip our heritage, even if you're Fulani and you are educated and worth millions. You can't come back because you feel it's an embarrassment to see our people going across the Sahara. Let me ask you something. Let's look at this from the Genesis. We have young men who love their cattle. We have Fulani brothers and sisters who love their cattle and love grazing, love to go across the Sahara, back and forth, like their ancestors were doing. Can somebody point this out under the Sharia law? If this is haram, or if this is kufr shirk, you cannot. It's an improved way of life because you worship and you're taking care of animals, which is a big reward. Azure, we know this in Islam. And you're providing products from your labor. Why are we having Fulani people calling for the disbandment of the herdsmen? All of them. We should not. And the Futafula among us. We have Fulani people who want to live in the cities. They want to be more modern. As long as they're practicing the religion, I don't care if they're tending to the cattle across the Sahara or if they're sitting in the cities. We as Fulani people are no different. We have the choice as long as we're worshiping Subhanahu wa ta'ala. The educators among us, the scholars and statesmen among us, he seeks their advice to assure that the actions are based upon the Quran and Sunnah. All of our educators, all of our imams, all of this, they should be going to our leaders, who are chosen leaders among the Futafula, and say, hey, you're not following the Quran and Sunnah. When you see them get up in front of the TV screen and they don't even mention Subhanahu wa ta'ala's name, you should chide them for that. And when they talk about other things, they quote some communist or they quote some other person. They don't quote another Fulani. They don't quote our ancestors who were ruling. They don't quote the Prophet ﷺ. They don't use the Quran, and they don't even say anything about any verses in the Quran to fit the situation at hand. They don't. They just talk. Our most educated and brave among our Fulani should be getting to our leaders who get up in front of the TV screen and start to counsel them and say, hey, look, you know what you're talking like? I don't even know if you're Muslim. If I didn't see you, if I didn't know who you were, I didn't know you're Muslim. They should be jumping on them. And I challenge anybody who comes back and says, oh no, the times are different. No. What do we follow? Today, are we actually following the Quran and Sunnah? Are we actually following our ancestors the way they ruled? Did they follow the Messianic group? Are we following Usman Dan Fodio? Was more recent? Or how about Omar Dar? Are we following their lead? No, we're not. See? And I'll get to some of our questions here, some of the things here. Our brothers, what we got here? Okay, we got, first Muslims. Oh yeah, first Muslims. I think, okay, I have Andalus. Okay. I have Andalus in my DNA also. Yes, you know what? Many Fulani, especially the Western Corridor, they have the Andalusian, because we had Fulani people going back and forth. We had also some Hausa, and we had many Sanike as well. And we had Wolof as well, went back and forth from the Andalus back down into Maghreb, back down into the Senegambia region. We know that today. We understand that. That's why the DNA among us who came from the Western Corridor, we have Amazigh. That's one thing. You're not going to be able to escape that if you Fulani, especially to the West. If you most of us will have Amazigh blood because we mixed. And then you'll have cousins from the Andalus, period. Okay? And that means Mexicans and other Spaniards and Portuguese may have your DNA as well, because our ancestral brothers went there and mated with the women there. That's right. See? And many of them had 50 to 100 concubines, and most of them might have been Spanish, white, Toubab. And they had babies. Some had 3 babies. Some had 5 babies by our Fulani brothers. See? So that's a fact. The reason why they do not want cattle and nomadic people is because it takes money away from the others. That's part of it as well, my dear brother. That's true. And that's true. But we must keep and cultivate this cultural, because that's our culture. And we can't go tell a man who he spends his life, and he doesn't want to. He's not looking to be a city dweller. He's not looking for wealth. He's not looking to be famous. He's not looking to YouTube to be a rapper. He's not looking for any of that. All he wants to do is follow as his ancestors, and he wants to live out in the open. He wants to live in the Sahara. He wants to go and he makes his prayer. He makes under the stars. Okay, we have that. And he wants to tend to his cattle. He's not hurting anybody. He's not killing anybody. He's not taking the way of somebody, their food or whatever away from them. We must cultivate this and not do away with that, because we're already doing away with the Fulfulde language. We're already starting to go away with that. Now we have Fulani, prominent Fulanis, who getting write letters talking about we should disband the herdsmen and take all this cattle away and move them into confines of a city. That's wrong. I don't think that's right. I need to do a discussion on them, but I need some books. Yeah, okay. I'll square you away on some things to get you caught up to speed on that, my dear brother. And remind me, in email, so I can do, because I have a lot of things going on, and sometimes I forget. I'm 70 years old now, so you can imagine. So sometimes I forget. So yeah, give me that, so that way I'll help you in this regard. And I would like to do a lesson on them, but reading some books, yes. Okay, now our brother says the Fulfulde are just like any other nation, like English, French, Arabs. We're not herders only. We have farmers. Yes, that's what I've said. If you listen to what I was saying down the line, I've said this. We have all of these ways of life. All of these things need to be cultivated. If the Futafula person, the Fulbe person, he says, okay, now, my father, my grandfather, all of them tended to the cattle, and they went across the Sahara. but now I want to go live in the big city. I want the big city life. That's his decision. As long as he's a practicing Muslim and he didn't forget, and he still maintains his Fulani heritage, we're losing this. Then there's no problem to that. See, but we should not make it to where we take the ability for somebody to choose. Because when you go and tell a young boy who says, I want to be like my father, I want to tend cattle, I want to buy cattle, I want to be married, I want to go across the Sahara, I want to do this is what I want to do for my life. I don't care about making riches. I don't want a car. I don't want a big house and a villa. That's his choice. We should leave him alone. Nor should we force him to say, okay, you leave that, now you move to Abuja, now you move to Accra, okay, or something like that, or now you move to Banjo. That's not right. We should not force anybody to choose what they don't want. See? It's true that I found a lot of genetic connections with multiple groups along the Bilad Sudan. Yes, because the Futafula went across, and everywhere they went and landed, they usually took women as wives. This is why even my heritage, I have all this. I got Bendinka, I have Mende, I have Capelli as well. And Omo people of northern Sudan and eastern Chad, all of that kind of stuff, and Amazigh. So it's a lot of mixing. So we are very mixed, and that's what I was talking about. So the Fulbe leader navigates with other non-Futafula. We have to do this. In Nigeria in particular, brothers and sisters, we have a problem between Christians and Muslims. We have a problem between the Fulani and the Yoruba and the Igbo. We have problems in this area, no doubt, and other ethnic groups. We have problems. A righteously guided Fulani leader in a Islamic group who spouts out the name and he says on the screen, I'm part of Mayate Allah. He's got to have the virtues in order to deal with the many facets of the Futafula, herders, Futatoro, the city dwellers, are scholars and educators, and so forth and so on. And he has to have the ability to mend the fences with our other African brothers who are not. We have to have this type of leadership if he's going to be part of any. If he's going to be, and I'll get into the groups in my next segment, but if he's going to be leading any of these groups, he's got to have this type of ability. And he can't compromise his religion either. I cannot support any Fulbe leader, Fulbe leader who abandons his religion in order to appease the Toubab or the disbelievers or the hypocrites. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you if you stay fast, even if they persecute you. And not with the Toubab colonial powers. As I said before, he has to learn how to navigate, but he does not compromise his faith with them. He does not. Now, brothers and sisters, this is a big one. We have Miyate Allah. We now nominated. I'm looking at the future, brothers and sisters. So bear with me when I talk about this. And I use these two beautiful words, which are powerful, that designates Tawheed Allah. When this future leader comes about, and when he's on the screen and he utters the word Yati Allah, he's going to have in the background behind him an Ashura council, which we're supposed to have as Muslims, of righteous, Fula leadership behind him, helping, guiding him. And he'll have even our Fulani brothers and sisters who have walked away from Islam or were not Muslims, he incorporates them as well to listen to them and to give them protection. Because this is where it's always been in Islam. We have this. If we have leadership, we're running any sultanate, then we have others. We have Jews, we have Christians, we have Juju, we have Obia, we have people worshiping, many to fire worshipers, all that live under, and you should have counsel because they know their people very well. If you take the people who are Juju, you get a Marabat, so that way he listens to what's going on. He can express his thing, and he can also talk about some of the problems they're having because they're living under our protection. See? And so that's important. Now, brothers and sisters, we need a conference to bring together various Futafula throughout the Sahel and the coastal West Africa. What is happening now is our brothers who are Mujahideen are doing this. And these are those who are fighting various governments through the Sahel. We know who they are. Okay? They're more or less talking to other Futafula brothers and bringing them under a banner. But those who are not fighting jihad, fi sabilillah, are not doing this. They're not going to their Ghanaian brothers who are Fulani to organize with them to bring them into one unit, or the brothers in Togo, or the brothers in the Gambia and Sierra Leone, or in Mali. We're not having that. That's why we're weak. We have a chapter over here in northern Nigeria. We have a chapter in southern Nigeria. We have a chapter in Niger. We have a chapter in Guinea. We have a chapter in Senegal. And we have all of these emirs in all of these, just like the Muslims today. We have 57 states. If I'm 57 or 54, I can't remember now. Muslim states. Do we have one leader? No, we have 54 states. Okay, that's why we're weak. The Futafula is the same way. We have many leaders and many small groups, but we don't have one. We don't have that. And that's why we're weak. That's why they push us around. That's why they arrest us. That's why, because if we had the right composition, we'll be able to combat against some of the things that's happening. And the Futafula brothers and sisters have a lot of wealthy people. Some of the wealthiest people in Africa are Fulani. We have a lot of Fulani people who do not look rich, but they are from cattle. So this is another thing. We have the money. That's not a problem. But the leadership is a problem. And we should develop this. And let's see, here we got other comments. Okay, let me see here. Yes, okay, we went there. Yes, must be a good leader. Yes, I know people will say, well, yeah, you're being harsh. I'm a Muslim. And under the Sharia law, I have a right to talk about issues because I'm talking among African people today, and I'm talking mainly among Muslims today now. So I'm not running over to the Toubab. Yes, he may come in and listen. He may see this, but I'm not talking directly with him. I'm talking with African people about our situations and Fulani people. I ain't talking to the Toubab. Now, what I mean by that, again, don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to say the Toubab come here, I'm going to disrespect him. No, I cannot. You heard me talk about this many times. I cannot, and I will not. But those who fight us, I will disrespect them, and I will not show them any mercy of any sort, because our Prophet ﷺ was given direction by Subhanahu wa ta'ala about this issue. I won't get it because I covered this before. But I'm talking among African people now. And we're talking about a segment of the population who is having problems because we're being killed everywhere. We're being jailed everywhere. We're being maligned everywhere. All of us are called terrorists. We have problems, and that has to be solved. 50, okay, yes, 54 states. Yes, it's 54 states. I always get mixed up between 54, 57. I don't know why I always like to say 57 states, but it's 54 states. Thank you, my dear brother, for mentioning that, because this is true. Now, I'm going to cover something, brothers and sisters, real fast here. Let me see here. Okay, let me get this. See if I can get this here. I'll be sure. I'm trying to get this. I want to read something to you, my dear brothers and sisters. Please bear with me on this. The leaders of the Messina group, they were something else. And this is why our Fulani brothers who are leading these groups under the title Miyate Allah, they should go back to see this. The way they did it, they had their empire was made up of 5 major regions. Okay, so what they did, they made regions, and then within each of these regions, governance was entrusted to a military governor. Again, the Fulani people and their, how they would do it, they would organize under their groups now, because when thousands upon thousands will come under Miyate Allah, and we will have one man who gives decisions. He will say, okay, we have brothers in Ghana, we have brothers in Guinea, we have brothers in Gambia, we have brothers sitting in Mali and Senegal. You see, and each one will have to answer to the head man. But our leaders, they did it in the past, they had governance that was entrusted. So he gave this leadership role to many in different areas, as they were known as emirs, who bore a responsibility of safeguarding their respective territories. Meaning the Fulani people under Miyate Allah, who are sitting in Mali, they have to safeguard and protect. They have to do what they can to protect, again, all walks of life of the Fulani people. If he's herdsman, if he's Futafula, he's a city dweller, if he's an educator, he's a teacher, he's a doctor, whatever situation may be, a scholar of this or that, or whatever the situation be, protect all ways of life. The Mir would support by local councils, and even he too has a group of Ashura council. We know this in the Sharia. If he's sitting in Mali, he has to answer to the Amir of all of the people sitting under Miyate Allah. Maybe he could be sitting in Kaduna. He could be sitting in Accra. He would have to answer to him. But he will have his group, he would have his area of responsibility. He would have local Ashura councils. Then he would have state-funded judicial systems. This is how they did it, granting them authority to render independent legal judgments and facilitate conflict resolutions. We don't have that. But this should go for any of African leaders, because we need independent legal judgments, not people who are bought and paid for, not a judge who sits there and then Americans or the French or the Russians call them and say, look, I need you to render a decision against Yahya and his people who are over here. We don't want that. We want people guided by Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Grand Council would act as the Supreme Court. Again, if we have problems in Mali, we have a Supreme Council under the Emir who's sitting wherever it may be, who is leader of all of us in Miyate Allah. And then he would have the overall say if there's a problem. The local government. The way our brothers did it in Messina, it was something else. Again, they had divided neighborhoods into several residences. Each residence was surrounded, again, in the olden times, they surrounded area like here in Morocco. That's what they did. They surrounded it with high walls to protect privacy, meaning the people lived in those communities were protected. You see this in Morocco today. We call the Old Medina, where you see all these big walls and they protected the people inside. And then they had, water that ensures reliable source of drinking water. There was also strong police. We need police of our own groups at this time who understand the Futafula. They speak the Messina dialect, or they speak whatever the dialect has to be Pular. And they speak this language, and they're already Fulani themselves, so they'll know how to mediate. You don't bring a person who's Tiv, who cannot speak the Messina dialect, and have him to come to police the Futafula. We see that today, and we've seen conflicts that enforces the rules of conduct and everything. Meaning, again, like Hezbollah, They'll look at making sure that we're clean, make sure we're praying, making sure that our sisters are dressed properly, not like we see in modern times today. We have sisters who are showing everything. You might as well take their clothes off because you can see just about everything today. See, so, and then the education, again, we stress, we need this. I agree with Sheikh Gumi, who was on an interview here days back. He was talking about that we need education pushed among the Fulani people because we don't have that. We lost that. But between the areas of 1300 to 1800s, the Futafula were being educated, both boys and girls. From the ages 7 to 21, were learning the basics of the Quran and the traditions of the Prophet, ﷺ, you know, as the Sunnah and the Nabawiyah. Okay, and we understand that. So, and again, they were taught even in worldly subjects. They were taught Arabic, they were taught grammar, and so forth. And all fees of schools were paid for by our organization, Miyati Allah. So I'm giving you these things, brothers and sisters, because I'm trying to get this to get you to understand, you know, how we ruled and how we governed. Okay, we don't have that today. And this is why I'm talking about that, because I'm an outsider looking in. Yes, I'm Fulani, but I'm looking, and I'm also a historian. So I look back at our ancestors, and I look at situations, and I look to see how they govern. I weigh it by the Quran and Sunnah. I go to the Quran and I look, I see. You hear me talk 1,000 times. I'm harping about this, about the Sharia law, about how we're supposed to govern. I got my proof from the Quran. I'm a Muslim. I don't use the Constitution of the Americans or the British, or if they say so. I go by what the Subhanahu wa ta'ala says. That's why you hear me say on when I talk about Islamic issues, okay, you hear me say this, Innani akulu ma yukul, meaning I say what the Quran says. I go by with that. So I look at there. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me guidance. He says, this is what we should be doing here. I go by that. I go by the Sunnah of the Prophet and given issues, and I weigh that. So I make a decision and I talk about that based upon that. Then I go back to all our scholars. We have 4 great imams, the Maliki, you know, Shafi, you know, this time. I go and review those issues as well. Then I go to the history. I pull up our brothers from the Takurur region in the 7th century, going all the way to Morocco, and see how they governed. See? And I use that. I'm a historian, and I look at that, and I weigh it to what we're doing today. Yes, we have differences. Yes, we have TV, we have telephones, we have stoplights now, okay? You know, we have different situations. Yes, but we can still manage that. And we're not doing that. See? So I gave you some things today, brothers and sisters, about the leadership. And I'm telling you right now, our leadership is weak. I'll get into the second segment of this when I talk about Miyati Allah. Because I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the leadership, not per se, as far as mentioning names and all that. No, I'm going to talk about issues about this and what is so disheartening about our groups today. But I give you the basis about what our ancestors said. When our greatest of warriors in West Africa, Samari Toure, what he said to the Fulani leadership, who at that time too was starting to go wayward, as we see it today. And they started to go wayward. He reminded them to bring them back. See? And so, you know, and again, you know, some of the things, like he said, if you cannot organize and lead and defend the country of your fathers, call upon others who do. So if you're Futafula and you're leading us, you must be gallant. You must be strong. You must be able to defend. And we're not necessarily talking about with guns and bombs. We're not necessarily talking about that. If you cannot say the truth, then at all times, call on the most courageous people. You heard me say this again with Summaries talking. You go to your scholars. We have brilliant scholars who can talk. We have brilliant scholars sitting in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Togo, and everywhere else, in Mali, in the Western Corridor, and Senegal, who speaks the truth. And they're courageous people. and they can lead. And those who cannot be impartial, then they should not be. We should not have a leader who advocates that we throw our brothers who are walking, who are escorting, and who are tending to our cattle and throw them out. Like I see some of, like this one letter, it was good. I understood what he said, but he was wrong too, because he doesn't want to protect this part of our culture. And if you want to make an analogy to this, you know, the American Indians, the Amerindians, that's what you should call them, because they're the first ones there, okay? The Amerindians. Look what happened to them. Huh? They took their culture away, their nomadic culture away, they took their languages away. And what are they today? When you allow others to dictate and start to take your culture away, you're gone. If you take the herdsmen away, you take that boy who's going with his father and that man who says, I have enough. I have food. My family is fed. I want to be with my cattle. I want to worship under the stars. I want to do this. You should leave him alone. I want to speak my language. You should leave him alone. Because we see what happened to American Indian and other cultures who've been destroyed. They take their cultures away from them and tell them now to be Toubab. They dress like Toubab and tell them to act like Toubab, and look what happened to them. See? Look at the American Eskimo. You see what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. And we need people who are impartial, meaning we need Futafula. We need our leadership. We need people who will protect all of us. We got Fulani people who are herders. We need our leadership to protect them. Get these grazing rights squared away. The Messina group had a brilliant thing between, you heard me say 100 times about the farmer, they protected both, and the herder. Our leaders protected both. They instilled laws where there's grievances that were settled. If I'm a herder and I come after Ahmed because Ahmed shot some of my cattle, who was shot unjustly because he's mad at me. I didn't go and till, on his farmland, but he went because he was mad at other Fulani. So he decided he's going to kill some of my, take my cattle. Then we go to arbitration and they would look at the issue and they go accordingly. Maybe Ahmed now was found guilty of this. Okay. He would turn around for penalty for what we call it adia. This is what we call this under the Sharia law in Arabic. He would turn around. He would give me maybe a partial yield of dashin as a punitive. You see, now I wronged our brother Ahmed. He's on the farm. I let my cattle. When he went to sleep at 10 o'clock at night, I took my cattle and grazed his cassava. It's maybe an area where he's got cassava and they ate up a lot of things. I get caught. Maybe I have to slaughter 20 to 30 cattle to pay him for the damages that I did to his farm. That's how our Fulani brothers governed in the past, brothers and sisters. They were just. Now, I'm not trying to say they were perfect, no. But they had outlines that we did for centuries. Why can't we go back to that? When the farmers are harmed, we have arbitration in the courts where we have Fulani judges, righteous men who arbitrate. We have laws set in there. This is what I'm talking about. And this is a big one. Samari Toure told our Fulani leadership, he says, look, man, if you can't face the enemy correctly, then give your sword to the woman. And then she would point you to the path of honor, because at that time, our sister was strong. Now we starting to see Fulani sisters going away from the culture, and they starting to look like African-American women in their ways and means and their attitudes, and they start to be naked, okay? And they started to show themselves, and they started to do things that's outside Pulaco, because we know this. So in those days, our Fulani sisters were of honor, and they led and they gave good counsel to their husbands, and they raised the children strong. This is what he's talking about. He said, you a weak leader? You're weak? You don't know how to face the Toubab? You don't know how to talk to the hypocrites? You don't know how to talk to the Tiv and Yoruba? Then you go to your wife and ask her. That's some strong advice. If you cannot gracefully express your thoughts, if you cannot talk, brothers and sisters, if you cannot talk, we have that. Now, I understand that we have many governments today. They're after all of the religious leaders and our scholars, and you can't talk. And I understand the fitna behind that. Those situations there, you have to weigh that, and that's between you and Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because if you go and say something wrong, you see what's happened in Saudi Arabia, okay? They go to kill you. How your family's going to fend for themselves when you got children, you got to put food on the table. You have to weigh those issues. I cannot judge a man on something like that. But if you're in a position that you can talk, you could talk, but you talk reasonably. Okay, and we have to do it according to the Quran and the Sunnah. If we have a leader who's sitting over the country and he's Fulani, he's sitting as the head man of the country, our Fulani leaders should go in private to counsel him and say, brother, you in a position now to help the Fulani people, not help the colonial powers, the Toubab, to kill us, not help the Tiv and the Yoruba and the Dogon and Mali to kill us. You should be helping to protect us because you are part of us, you're part of this community. And you need to start to rule by Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, by his laws. They should go to him and ask them that and push that, especially like in Nigeria. See? And we have to have that. And Fama, again, this word is very interesting. The Fama also is in Mendika. We know Fama also in Mendip, but we also know Fama in the Messina Fulfulde dialect. I also know this because we have women have this name like this, because my great-great-great-great-grandmother had this name, which was changed over when, I guess, when they went into Maghreb and they married the Amazigh people, the name became Fatma. Okay, we know that. And when she was taken as a slave, until my great-great-great-grandmother, right, taken as a slave into the United States, they tried to change her name to some bad American name, which means whore, okay? She fought tooth and nail, said, no, I'm not taking this name. So the records reflect this name today that I found in 1854. She kept the name. I wish I could see my great-great-great-grandmother hug her and kiss her feet. I wish I could do that. That'd be to see her. She was taken, brothers and sisters. Can you imagine this? You think about a sister, a Muslima. She was taken on a ship with all that filth. The Toubab's hands could go on her anytime they wanted. They brought her to the Americas and they tried to get her away from her full name and try to make her take on a name, Fanny. Fanny is not good. This is a name they used to call black women slaves because they have big, rear ends, right? And Fanny means the butt. Okay, the butt, the backside. So they used to call our women Fanny. They tried to give that name. She refused it. See, she refused it. We got some brothers here. Let me see. We got somebody else. We can see you, but we cannot hear you. Oh, man, you can't. Can you hear me? Okay. I hope you can hear me now. Okay. Let me see. One of my answers was maybe her mother was regarded as. Yes, that's good. I'm hoping, brothers, that this is a problem that I have. I got to rectify that. I get a lot of disconnections, stuff like that. And I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. Okay, you said yes. Thank you, my dear brother. I appreciate that. Because some of maybe you may not be able to hear me. I don't know when I was reading. Maybe I was disconnected. I'm not sure. Thank you, my dear brother Marcus, for giving me that information. So, brothers and sisters, I'm getting ready to conclude here because I wanted to talk. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free. Go ahead and write me now. I'm free. My discussion, you got my point about leadership. I'm going to cover this because you're going to probably be confused. Well, why are you talking about Fulani leadership? I will sew that up. My next segment, I will talk to you about what I'm talking about leadership. I gave you some tidbits about what I think the future could like. Bi'ifnillah, Allah, Allah. That's all I'm saying. Because I'm not, I'm just talking about what I surmise, what I think. That's all. But Subhanahu wa Ta'ala knows. I don't know I don't have quote unquote in English karma. I don't have that. But I just want to give you something what I think. I will sew this up so that way you can understand why I'm talking about leadership today. Because I'm a stickler on that. And I don't like to see any Muslim, period, especially in this today's climate, with his head between his legs. When he gets up here to talk, why can't he mention Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name? I don't understand that. Okay? I don't understand that. We're Muslims. You hear Christians, so-called Christian Toubab leaders, they'll get up there and they'll say something under the Christian tradition. But we have mostly Muslims today will get there, they will not. And some you look at them and you wonder if they're Muslims at all. See? And the true leader puts Subhanahu wa Ta'ala first. As you heard me talk about back here about 6 months ago, about the old leader who was essentially assassinated in Egypt. And that brother went before the UN. That's the first time I've ever seen such a speech by a Muslim, where he, of course, he's from Egypt. He wrote it in Arabic language and he spoke in Arabic, but he gave his synopsis on, and he gave the right way under the Sunnah to talk to believers and disbelievers who were in the crowd. And he mentioned Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name and he venerated our prophet. That is a good leader. Fulani, Mandinka, I don't care who you are. If you're Muslim, that's the way you're supposed to do it. You don't use the Toubab's way. You are a Muslim. You are African. You do not talk like them. You are Muslim and you're leading. If Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is allowed you to talk in the public, you venerate Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. If you undermine Allah and you get up there, you talk. You look at your ancestors. Hamidi in the 1500s, did he talk? You read about how he ruled. When they wrote letters, what happened? When they wrote to other Muslims, what did he? Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim, right? Okay, they did this. Venerating Subhanahu wa Ta'ala always in the Prophet. How about you have Amadou? You had Haba Sawadi, one of my favorites of all the sultans. I loved him, the way he governed. And his name means black man. Black man. This is under the Messina Fulfulde. That's right. And how he talked. Our leaders today don't do that. Okay? As though they're afraid. They get up on TV. You've tried to wait and see, yes, you think if they're in this organization, but you ask, are they Muslims or not? Our prophet gave us a guide on how we're supposed to speak in the public. And that's what we use. Because then we are getting the credit from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And again, I reiterate this, brothers and sisters. I go back to the Genesis. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave us Islam in West Africa first. Okay? And then he let us be his couriers, and we carried it all the way over to Senegal from the Sahara, all the way to Senegal. And in the southern part of Morocco, as we understand today, and other parts of Morocco at that time we knew was Mauritania and places like that. Okay, all that was West Africa. They went and they spread this all through there. Why? Why did he give it to us first? And now we've lost all of this. Our leaders don't talk. Now some of our scholars do. Our scholars will talk. They will say many things and they talk good. They'll get up there and venerate Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and our prophet. But most don't do that. We hear all a no connection issue. Okay, good. Thank you, my dear brother. Thank you for telling me that. If we want to restore the Islamic culture and caliphate back, only we Africans could do it now. If Fulbe and Mandinka Hausa have a big and join forces with other Muslim nations, it's going to happen, my dear brother. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I believe, again, that's why I'm jumping about the leadership. Because when you really look at it, to be honest with you, how many groups strike fear into the minds of the Toubab and the minds of the hypocrite. You look at all these groups, but do you notice something? And I gave you some of this a couple of days ago. Look at the TV programs, and when there's a problem going on, and it has to do with Miyate Allah, look how they say this name, and look how they pronounce it, and look at the fear in their faces. I always review programs when they talk. I hear them talk about the bandits. I hear them talking about Boko Haram. I hear them talking about the Ansaru. I hear them talking about this, that. But when there's a situation in some of the groups who have some of the title of Miyate Allah, you smell the fear. And they look to find things. And they're quick to always say it's terrorism. There's a reason for that, because they fear that. But all of us will have a galvanizing sultan. And it's going to happen in the future. No doubt. It's coming to that. See, it's coming to that. And we're not talking about who's going to bring that forward. Is it going to be Boko Haram? Is it going to be the bandits? No, those people are not going to do it. They are serving a purpose for a reason. Subhanahu wa ta'ala is allowing them to do some of the things they are doing. Yes. But the true leadership is not going to come from them. The leadership is going to come from these people who have been designated, who may be sitting back in the wings in Kaduna, who may be sitting in Warno. They may be sitting there in Abuja. We do not know. Others may be sitting in Banjul. Okay? They may be sitting in Senegal or southern part of Mauritania. We do not know. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala will finally call their number and they will come to the forefront. But when you look at the historical leadership from 700 AD to the 1800s, it's Fulani. Brothers and sisters, we can't get past that. Yes, we have Mandinka, we have Hausa, but you look at their empires. How many can say today that we did we're no Hausa empires, sultanates, I mean, from Senegal, stretched all the way into to western part of Sudan. The Fulani, yes, they did, but no one else. This is what I'm talking about. Allah will help us to reestablish the Islamic culture and way of life. And how can we? It's going to happen, brothers and sisters. It's going to happen. We have to be patient. It may not happen in my lifetime. I do not know. Each one of us have to do our part. All we have to do, we're not talking about terrorism. We're not talking about doing anything against nobody. No, we're Muslims. We cannot do that. Yes, we have brothers doing that. We have to be guided correctly. Look at our Prophet, ﷺ. How many years he sat there and suffered and waited for Subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him the word to fight back. But in that meantime, he developed a culture, right? And he began to bring the people slowly bringing them so they can be righteous. They prayed the Hajj prayer at night before Fajr prayer. They had to eat, they eat right. They start fasting right. They start to make wudu. And also he brought the culture to them before they had an opportunity to fight. When Subhanahu wa ta'ala saw that Islam was strong, he said, now we have enough people. Now we're guided. Now I'll let you fight. Now I'll give you victories. This is the same thing today. If the Futafula people go back to where it's supposed to be, he will honor us. Inshallah, bi'ithnillah. And we already have that. We start to have that. It's just that we need a little push. And this is what I'm talking about today. Because there's articles today talking about things about the Futafula. It's not right. And you see articles about Miyate Allah. They use this term here, and you see critical comments. Very critical. Okay, very, very critical comments. And some of the comments are very harsh. But I will say this to you, and I will get ready to close. Yes, it means, I think Allah, that's right. It means, unity. Yes, this, I will get into this in my next segment. we have a serious problem, my brothers and sisters, and we're trying to figure out a solution. And I am not happy about what I see because I'm an outsider, meaning I'm outside of the fray, especially looking at Nigeria. I'm looking and I'm seeing, and I'm looking at the three prominent Fulani organizations, and I'm not happy of the leadership that's running it. And he seemed to forgot the basic principles of Islam. I'm not saying they're disbelievers. Please don't, I'm not saying that. But how many have you seen venerate Subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have certain scholars who do that. Okay, Sheikh Gumi, you see that, Sheikh Bala and some others, they venerate Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do it correctly, and then they give their talk. But most of our people don't do that. Why is that? See, and I just disagree with what I see, and that's why I talk about it. And I think we could do better, and I'm hoping that we do better. But there was one letter, and I will say this, and I will close, brothers and sisters. There was a letter drafted some years back, about 4.5 years ago, maybe 5 years. I still think it's prevalent today. It was a prominent, I don't want to give his name, because I'm not here to cast stones at him. It's not right, because he's not here to defend himself. I'm not going to do that. But he wrote a letter, interesting letter, talking about the Fulani leadership. And he was very upset with them because he said they used the title, part of the title of Niyate Allah. And he was talking about all the groups, Atal Huri, all of those, okay? The Cattle Association, the Kitab Pulako, okay, all that, he was talking about that. But here's what I'm trying to make a point to you, brothers and sisters. He made interesting points, but he called for the dismantlement of the herdsmen. He thinks this is a backward culture. He's Fulani himself, but he's an educator and he was a doctor. We cannot follow any Fulani person who wants to disband any part of the Fulani culture. Again, a great leader will cultivate all facets of the Fulani. Some Fulani people are Futafula. They live in the city. They want to live in the city. This is their life. They want city life. They want to be around a lot of people. We cultivate that. We have our brothers who are herdsmen in the Sahara and the savannah. They want to live in the savannah. They want to cultivate their livelihoods there. But he made an interesting point about this, and Sheikh Gumi did too. But they need education. And it's true, because many cannot read and write. They should study because they're Muslims. They should have courses in the Quran and the Sunnah. You heard what I said. Hopefully you said when I read off the Messina talking about this issue, they train the boys and girls at 7, girls too, from 7 to 21 in Quranic law and the Sharia law and the Sunnah of the Prophet Islam. Plus, they gave them worldly classes like mathematics and everything else too. See, today, many of our Futafula people don't have education, especially the herders and so forth. We should educate all, even if it's in the Quranic law. They should be able to read the Quran. They got to do it and understand their religion well. Our sisters have to be educated so that when they have their children, they educate the children. We're starting to lose that. We've lost that. And a part of the problem we have today is because our sisters are no longer in position to train our children anymore because they themselves are not educated. Usman bin Fodia fought against that. When he made his sultan, he had centers for the sisters so they can come to learn and so forth and relax, get away from the house. She's around other sisters. They can discuss things. He made point. He saw the importance of our sisters. If our sisters were a part of the community and part of the building of the nation, then they train our children. We lost that. We need Fulani leadership to bring that back. This is what I'm talking about. So, brothers and sisters, this again is, you see my talks are unorthodox. I don't follow a script that is followed by many people. I try to give you something that people don't talk about a lot. And I try to give you as much facts as I can. And I try to give you some thought so that you can start doing your research and everything. But there's a lot of scholarship out there. Some of it's just not good. See, and this is an issue that I'm hoping that, in the future, like I said, we start to hit the books, we start to look, and we start to ask Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for guidance, and we start asking for our leadership in the Futafula community in particular to start to come back to the fold, because we lack the leadership. We're lacking the leadership. We need this leadership. If we have it, it will solve many of our problems. But today we don't have that, and everybody's picking on us. Okay, until we start to organize. And when we put Subhanahu wa Ta'ala first, he will reward us. It may not be today. It could be 3 years from now, but he will reward us. He will reward us. And our Futafula leadership must be made aware of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's promises that he makes many times in the Quran, if we are guided right. And our Futafula brothers from the 700s, to the 1800s, there's too many names for me to mention. I'll be here for days upon days mentioning all of the Fulani leadership and how they governed and how they mentioned Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name first and how powerful they were. We have many examples to choose from, brothers and sisters. We have many. And I choose to look back to see how they governed and to use that in order to help me today. See, and I'm hoping our leaders will do the same thing. And I want to see our Futafula leaders, if they utter the 2 words of Miyati Allah first, they belong to this and that. I want them to carry on as our ancestral brothers did. And they have plenty of examples. They had Usman Den Fodio, that Omar Dal, okay? They had all this. They had the Messina Sultanates. You had Hamidi, you had Sawadi, you have Ahmadu. There's many of these brothers. Muhammadu. There's many of these rulers. We have many who left scholarship. They have rules for the herders and for the farmers. We have all of that. Once we start doing that, this is why our enemies try to keep us divided, so we cannot come to power. We got to make a decision, and we have to ask our leaders to be forthcoming, and that we pray that we bless those people who Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will choose to lead us. I want to see that in my lifetime. But right now, I see something, and even others talk about many of the leadership, they're not happy. And I know where our hands are tied because the governments, they are democratic. They're under the thumb of the Americans and the Russians. Not the Russians, but the British and the French and all that. Yes, we know there's a lot of problems. But if you pray to Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and you, in your heart, you want to bring Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, you want to make his name supreme, he will find a way for you. He's done this in every era in our history. When we became Muslims, he's done that. See, so this is what I'm talking about today. And I hope that you got something from me today. And those that you talk to, maybe mention this. I just give you food of thought. You guys do your research on this. You can get a hold of me if you want to talk to me about this. I'm going to give you another segment. I'm going to talk about these groups in earnest the next time, inshallah ta'ala, okay, about this issue about the Fulani groups and how they're being run. And I'm telling you right now, I'm a stickler about this. And I hate to see any Muslim, regardless if he's Fulani or not, when he don't mention Subhanahu wa Ta'ala first, I'm sorry. This is something wrong. And that to me tells me what's in his heart. I'm not talking about you forget, because I'm getting older now too. Many times I forget many things. I got to write it down because I forget. But we have people, because they never mentioned Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's name at all. That's why when they put on the public, they don't mention his name, because in the private, they don't use his name either. You think about that. See, even a simple Bismillah, you don't hear many of our people say this at all. You don't, why? Why is that? Why Subhanahu's name is not supreme among us? We have to ask those questions, and I'm asking those questions. I gave you an example of our summary Tory. He told you what he was thinking about, what he gave when he talked to the Fulani leadership back in the 1800s, before they were trying to fight him, and he corrected them because they were being misguided by another group who were disbelievers. See, so we have that. We have the leadership, brothers and sisters. I'm hoping that you stay with me and that you follow me and you get others to follow me and subscribe and everything. I give you food of thought. I give you unorthodox talks where you don't get many people to talk about this. I give you my proofs and everything. And Marcus, my dear brother, if you're still with me, please write me to remind me about some of the things because you want it, so that it'll help you, in your podcast. So get a hold of me to remind me so I don't forget. Okay, brothers and sisters, and those who are watching me now, Rahmaket Allah alaikum. May Subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families as well. And please be cognizant of your safety everywhere you may be today. Be very proud of who you are. You're Muslim or you're not Muslim, that's one thing. I'm not here to degrade you. If you're Muslim and so forth and so on, and you're Fulani, you're with us today, you must go back and look at our past accomplishments. You must, brothers and sisters, our sisters, we should go back so that way we can train our children. Now we start to look at young Fulani girls. You see them now, they're not in the tradition, our tradition anymore. They're in tradition like the African American women you see in Europe. I mean, in Americas, they're half naked now. They're showing themselves. Okay, we need to go back to education. We need our sisters' help to go back to hit the books so we can train our children. We need this in all aspects of the Fulani lifestyle. Never follow a man. And if he's among the Futafula who tells the disbelievers and the enemies, our enemies, that he wants to disband the herdsmen, meaning he wants to stop our cattle from grazing and stop the lifestyle, you don't follow this man. He's a traitor. Because this is part of our legacy, is those who go across, because they do things that help out. And again, I challenge anyone who says that this lifestyle is haram, you show me the proofs in the Quran and in the Sunnah that this is a lifestyle that is wrong and is haram, or if it's under kufr, disbelief, and under shirk or polytheism. You show me how that is. Somebody give me the proof on this issue like this. Don't follow no Fulani man who says he wants to disband and take the people out. Yes, I agree when they say give them education. Yes, we should give them education, but don't disband them. If a man's love is to go across the Sahara and the savannah with his cattle, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how he makes his livelihood. He is no different than the Futafula that's living in Abuja. Those Fulani want to live, let them live there in Abuja and any big city. They're Futafula, that's okay. He's a herder out there in the savannah. He's okay. He's a doctor. He's a mathematician. He's a school teacher. It's no problem. We cultivate all the life of the Fulani people, regardless if he's me or anybody else. We all have differences. We all have things we like. We cultivate that and bring all this together. I have one more comment here, and then I will go here. Okay, my dear brother. Yes, please, please get a hold of me and tell me, remind me, so that way I can get some of the things that you need. Okay, my dear brothers and sisters. I got to go. I got to pray here. It's time for Maghrib, and I have to go and get ready for that. So, brothers and sisters, I hope you stay tuned for the next segment I have here in a couple of days, inshallah ta'ala. And I'll cover the second part about the Fulani leadership and whatnot, what is needed. And I'll talk about these groups. And I hope that you stay with me on this and give some food of thought, and you subscribe to me. I will appreciate that. And all those who are looking at now in the future, please, my brothers and sisters, wherever you may be, in the Sahel or the Savannah or in the coastal West African states or in North Africa, wherever you may be, please be careful, okay? Please be careful. Look out for yourselves and your family, and look out for other Africans as well, because we're under attack everywhere. Everywhere we're at, we're being under attack. So please be careful out there. And I hope Subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you and guides you correctly in this life. And I hope that he will guide you in the hereafter as well. And I hope that for all of us. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.